Ah, peeps, well I'm back again. Did a couple of videos as I went up to Old John. Unfortunately, it looks as though something happened with my phone and became corrupted. So unfortunately I've lost those ones. I also did a video as I came through Swithin Woods, which is where I'm at the moment. I'm just going through some cows at the minute. Hey, afternoon. Now, one thing I would say about cows and that, just be wary of what you're doing. I mean, I tab quite a bit and I go through fields where there's cows and bulls and things like that. A little bit of advice for all of you: if you are doing that and you're very wary, go around the outside of the field and keep the fence line in line with you. That way, if the cows do suddenly charge, at least you can scramble over the fence and get out of the way. But like I say, I do a lot of tabbing, go through a lot of fields with cows and bulls, and I'm used to it, and a lot of them are now used to me. That's the main thing. But like I say, I did a couple of videos. One of them is I came through what I'm going back through now, which is called Swithin Woods. For those people in Leicestershire, you'll probably know it as Bluebell Woods, because when the bluebells are out, it's beautiful. There's a whole carpet of just blue on the floor. Absolutely fantastic, really is. But when I came through there, through Swithin Woods, I did a video about the person that I lost actually during training, I think. And luckily enough, I managed to get it through it all without getting too emotional. But unfortunately, that video was corrupted. So I'm going to go back through Swithin Woods on my way home, and I'm now going to do this one about the death in training. So just to give you the sort of beginnings of it, I deployed out to Cyprus under the United Nations with 66 Squadron RCT, and we were at Nicosia at the airport. Unfortunately, there was no job for me. Yeah, well, unfortunately in one sense, there was no job for me as a REME electrician, vehicle electrician, because they had three civilian vehicle electricians, and of course they were the ones given the jobs because they were being paid over the top. So I spent most of my 6-month tour in Cyprus actually at the parachute centre down in Decalia on the staff there. So I've got loads of jumps in and had a whale of a time, to the point that the OC on the medal parade asked me and the RCT lad, a bloke called Mick Ellingworth, whether we got a medal each or a medal between the two of us, because we'd hardly spent any time actually in the barracks or the complex up in Nicosia. But I came back from Cyprus November 1980. Whilst I was in Cyprus, I've been promoted to Lance Corporal, and when we got back to our barracks in Tidworth, Jalalabad Barracks, or Jelly Baby Barracks as we used to call it, I don't know if the guys still say the same thing, but when I got back, we'd arrived late. Hello. We'd arrived late. There was a bit of an hullabaloo at Bryce Norton, and we ended up getting back to our barracks sort of late evening. And when I walked into my 4-man room that I'd vacated when I deployed out of Cyprus, I found someone sleeping in my bed space. Well, we'd obviously 253'd all our kit, put them into boxes, they went into storage because we were away for 6 months. But there was this young lad lying in my bed. The lad's name was Craftsman Andrew Vine, otherwise known to everyone as Brummie. He came from Cradley Heath, and what it was Brummie had been posted in while we were deployed away. Yeah, he was a fresh out of training, so he'd done basic training, then gone away and done his trade training as a vehicle mechanic. Got posted at 66 Squadron RCT. But like I say, he was in my bed space. Ain't right, is it? You know, that was mine. I'd been there since 1978. You know, so I turfed him out of my bed space, trying to find another one. Yeah, well, this was about 10, 11 o'clock in the evening. So of course it was then a case of rummaging around and getting him a bed space. But me and Brummie became really good friends. You know, we had a good banter going on between the pair of us. And then in 1981, Brummie asked me if I would be best man at his wedding to a lovely girl called Trish. I'd never met Trish. In fact, I didn't meet Trish until the funeral. And he asked me to be best man at his wedding. I was chuffed, absolutely chuffed. I mean, he was the first person that asked me to be best man. And second one is my mate Lionel Rogers asked me to be best man at his wedding a few years ago. So I'd agreed to be best man at Brummie's wedding. But then what happened was we were going to deploy on an adventure training exercise. And for those of you that don't know what an adventure training exercise is, basically we go away and we do things like rock climbing, abseiling, canoeing. Yeah. Basically it's a bit of a team building exercise, yeah, within the military. So we then got told that we were doing this adventure training, and it actually coincided with, it was going to be a couple of weeks before Brummie was going to get married. So he went off and saw our AQMS and asked for permission to not deploy on the adventure training. I think what Brummie was worried about was the fact he might break his arm or break his leg or something like that. I mean, that wouldn't look good on the wedding photographs, would it? Bloke stood there with a pot on his arm or on his leg or whatever. And unfortunately, he was refused permission. Yeah, now, we had our AQMS, and we also had a staff sergeant who Mick Seabrook had gone out to Cyprus with us, and then obviously came back with us. And Mick was given the task of informing Brummie that that he would have to deploy on adventure training. So we did. We went out to a place called Tavistock down in Devon, and we did the normal thing. And then one day we were going sea canoeing, so we went down to this beach not far from Tavistock to do sea canoeing. Well, Brummie was an experienced canoeist anyway, but as with any adventure training exercise, you have to go through the drills, don't you? Things such as capsize drills. And even though Brummie was a seasoned canoeist, he had to go through it. So we're all there, we all roll over, and the next thing I know is Brummie's come back up and he says to the instructor that he can't get the skirt off. It's a skirt that basically stops the water from coming into the canoe. So the instructor told him to roll back over and give it a good old tug, and it should come away. Now, none of us will know exactly what happened. The only thing we can put it down to is Brummie rolled over and had forgotten to take a breath. and he tried to take a breath before his head hit the water, and the only thing we can think is he got it wrong. He got a lungful of water. So the next thing, he's splashing around and panicking, and we all obviously paddled over to try and assist him. Got there, got the canoe righted, got him out of the canoe and actually up onto the beach. So we were up on the beach and we noticed that he's struggling for breath and everything, and there was about 10 of us on the beach that day, and we all kicked in, didn't we? Yeah. The first aid training immediately kicked into gear. Everyone was doing their bit. Hello, buddy. And I'll never forget to this day. Yeah, like I say, first aid kicked in. This was in the days before mobile phones. Yeah, and one of the lads ran off up the road to try and find a phone box to ring for assistance. Now, we knew that the Royal Marines were actually exercising out on Oakhampton, out on Dartmoor, and we knew they got helicopters at the time. So as well as ringing for assistance from an ambulance, the lad who ran off to go and make the phone call rang through to Oakhampton camp as well and asked them for assistance. Could they release a helicopter to come to our location, yeah, and help to extract Brummie off the beach? And we were denied that facility. So the next thing I know is we have an ambulance arrive hours later, yeah, to come down to the beach, and there was no blues and twos or nothing, because the ambulance crew had been told there's a body in the water, go and pick it up. Yeah, so I was a bit peeved over that. Also the fact that the Royal Marines hadn't helped us, and we carried on administering first aid. Now, like I say, the ambulance crew in them days, they weren't paramedics, they were just purely people that drove around and picked people up in ambulances, which is fortunate nowadays. You know, it's not just an ambulance driver, you've got a paramedic there as well. But we carried on administering first aid until eventually we ended up with two seeking air sea rescue helicopters arriving to help. Now, during the time that we've been giving Brummie CPR and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, I will never forget this, and this image stays with me always. Dave Whitfield, our recovery mechanic, I was giving chest compressions at the time. Dave was giving mouth to mouth, and Brummie involuntarily vomited into Dave Whitfield's mouth. Dave immediately lifted his head, spat it out, and carried on giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Dave, if you ever see this, mate, please drop us a note. I'd love to get in touch with you again. But like I say, we kept Brummie alive, or kept giving resuscitation, for around about 4 hours on a beach in Devon. When the helicopter arrived, there was a doctor on board. And the doctor came off, checked Brummie's vitals, checked his pulse, and turned around and said, no, he's gone. And I said to him, no, he hasn't. So if you feel into his groin, you'll find a faint pulse. Obviously, he's been in the water, it's cold. In them days, we didn't have survival blankets or anything like that. But the doctor felt, sure enough, got a pulse. And then we loaded him onto the helicopter and got him whisked away to Plymouth Hospital. So the next thing was we all loaded up on the 4-tonner and went back to the barracks where we were staying in Tavistock. When we arrived back at the unit, it was the Sergeant Major came over, said to me, "Corporal Clark, I need a quick word." So I said, "What's that, sir?" He said, "Brummie's gone." And I said to him, "No, he hasn't, sir." I said, "We've kept him alive on the beach, you know, they've whisked him off to the hospital." He said, "No," he said, "we've had a phone call and it seems that the stress and everything of it all has been too much for Brummie and he slipped away." Well, what a kick in the teeth for us as a team. You know, we thought we'd done everything we possibly could to try and keep him alive. So the Sergeant Major said to me about the fact that what I want you to do, take the lads away. He said, "Go downtown, get blottoed if you want to." He said, "But I want you guys to sort of be away from this whole thing." So we'd been in Tavistock for about a week and a half by that time, and we'd found a local boozer that we used to go down to every night. Barman was a bloke called Ian, as I remember it. And we tipped up at the pub, walked in, and Ian looked and said, "Where's Brummie?" So we had to explain to him about the fact of what had happened. And he immediately turned around and said to me, "Get the boys sat down," he said, "beers are on me." So he brought the beers over, and after he'd given us the first round of drinks, door opened and this young Royal Marine with a green t-shirt with the laurel on the front and the dagger on the back walked in. And Ian spotted him straight away. Lad went up to the bar and Ian said to him, he said, "If I was you, lad," he said, "I'd go now, go and find somewhere else to drink." And he explained to this young lad, this young Marine, what had happened. Well, this young Marine came over to our table, and you can imagine the daggers he was getting, and apologised, and quite rightly so. We couldn't blame him for it. It wasn't his fault. Someone else had made the decision not to assist us. But he gave his apologies. We accepted that. Asked him very politely if he would mind sort of walking out, and he did. But we then went back to the barracks. Eventually went back to Tidworth. Yeah, and I don't know if it was what the parents wanted, whether it was Trish that wanted it or what, I don't know. But the day of Brummie's funeral was the day that he should have got married. And instead of being best man at his wedding, I ended up as head pallbearer at his funeral. Now, like I say, I do get a bit emotional at times over it when I think about it, and I'll tell you a little story about that in a moment. So we all went up to Cradley Heath from Tidworth, as a workshop, to Brummie's funeral. Now, I'd managed to hold everything together between the time of the incident happening on the beach and the time of the funeral. I'd managed to hold everything together. Most of the other lads had broken down and cried or whatever over the time. Some of them while we were practicing the funeral drills. But I'd managed to hold everything together until the day we were in the church. Now, I'd never met Trish until the day of the funeral. which was quite hard for me. You know, here I should have been celebrating their wedding. But while we're in the church, I'm sat waiting. We'd put the coffin on the trestle, and there were two women behind me, and my mate Eddie Handy. Fun enough, Eddie ended up being best man at my first wedding. But excuse me, the two ladies behind me, I heard one of them turn around and say to the other one, that gentleman there was supposed to be best man at the wedding. And I literally just broke down and cried. Yeah, because it suddenly hit home. But we had a REME major had come all the way from our depot in Arborfield. Why he came, I don't know. We'd already got REME representation in the fact of all the lads from the unit were there. But we had this REME major that had come along, and he came over to me, "Corporal, pull yourself together, you're making a show of yourself." Well, it's one of the few times that I've gobbed off to an officer, and I basically told him where to go. I won't repeat what I said on here, but I told him where he could get off. Yeah. So we obviously buried Brummie in Cradley Heath, and there isn't a day goes by where I don't think of him and Trish. Now I believe Trish took Brummie's surname, even though they never ended up getting married. Trish took Brummie's surname. She did come to Tidworth after the funeral and sat with us all, and had a good discussion, you know, about Brummie and his life with us and everything, and his life with her. Oh, I've got two dogs having a go at each other here, so I'm just waiting for them to come through. But yeah, Trish, she came to Tidworth, met everyone. I was just saying, it's having a go there.
I say it's not ours, they're off today at the garden. One of them goes absolutely, well, you can hear it.
Yeah.
It's really mad.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah. As I got over the stile, it frightened me to death.
You have a great day.
You too.
Take care. But yeah, Trish came to Tidworth, met up with everyone properly. Yeah, in a different scenario, you know, rather than at the funeral. So, like I say, there isn't a day goes by where I don't think of Brummie. Now, it was a couple of years ago, Lisa and I went to National Arboretum. Met up with a guy that I served with back in the 80s when I was stationed in Vale with the Black Watch and the Royal Scots. And what I didn't know was that Rick had been a volunteer at the Arboretum, and we were just talking about things. We were talking about the wall, yeah, the names on the wall and that. And there's a few names up there that very good friends of mine that were lost in operations. But I said to Rick about the fact there's one person whose name won't be up there. And he says to me, "Why is that?" I said, "Because he didn't die in conflict." And he said, "But was he serving?" I said, "Yeah." And I explained to him about the adventure training exercise. And Rick said to me, "But he died in service, so therefore his name will be on the wall." So I said, "Well, it can't be, you know, he didn't die in conflict or anything." He said, "No, he died in service." So he asked me the lad's name, and I said, "Well, Brummie Vine." He went, "No, what's his real name?" I said, "Andrew Vine." He said, "When did it happen?" I said, 1981. He said, "I think you'll find, Nobs, that his name's up on the wall." And Rick took me to the wall. When I went to the wall, I paid my respects to the other guys that I'd known that died in conflict. And sure enough, there it was, 1981, a Vine. And I literally broke down and cried. And Lisa was with me, Rick was with me, and they both consoled me, because I was in a bit of a state by this time, because I just couldn't believe that Brummie's name would be up on the wall. Now, I've actually been to Brummie's gravesite twice before. This is before I met Lisa. I must go again soon, I must admit. But they both consoled me, and like I say, Craftsman, Andrew, Vine, REME, mate, I miss you. I think you virtually every single day, and here we are 40 years on and I still miss you. I think about all the times we had, especially when we went out to Denmark on Amber Express. We had a laugh out there. It was a good group of guys at 66 Squad and RCT. Had a great time with them. But Brummie, like I say, lost due to a training accident. And as Keith said, you know, the guys that died on that exercise practicing for the D-Day landings. 700 odd guys lost due to miscommunication. But I've also had 2 other guys that I knew, again in the 80s. We were on an exercise in San Lago, live fire and exercise, and we were doing all our APWT and everything like that. And one of the things was we were going to do a CFT, so we were out doing a CFT, and it was the pipe major for the pipes and drums of the Black Watch. We were coming back into Normandy Barracks, and the PTI decided that for the last sort of half a mile we would do the CFT with our respirators on. Now, it's bad enough sort of breathing through a respirator normally, but trying to breathe through a respirator when you're blowing out your backside after an 8-mile tab, that's a bit strenuous. And we just got into the back gate of Normandy Barracks off the range road, and suddenly the pipe major went down like a sack of stones. And unfortunately he died. He had a massive heart attack. But on that same exercise, just a few days later, there was an incident where weapons that came in off the range hadn't been cleared properly. And it was the Law 66. Now, those of you that remember the Law 66, the old tube, this thing came in, and we weren't firing the live round at the time. We were firing a 7.62 tracer round out of it. So there was an adapter piece that went into the tube, and the weapons came in off the range, came into the armoury, and our armourer, a bloke called Rob Binstead, was doing his NSPs to clear them, pulled the tube open, and suddenly bang. Unfortunately, there was a young Black Watch private that was still in line, that had moved in line with the 66. Well, the round hit him, he went down. I know that the guys that were in the armoury that day did everything they possibly could to try and save his life. I know Rob Binstead actually used his beret to try and stem the blood flow, because at the time that's all he had to hand. But training accidents, they're hard to understand. when people go down in conflicts, you can understand it a bit more, you know. You got rounds coming at you. But for something to happen on what should be a safe exercise, hits home really hard to you. I know it did with me. So anyway, I've gone on for quite a while now about Brummie. Like I say, I did try doing this video before when I came through Swithy Woods, but it went corrupt. So hopefully this one doesn't. So peeps, if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Not telling you to do it, just asking you to consider it. Because we don't tell people what to do on our channels, me and Keith. We do this for the love and the passion of doing it. And if we get people like yourselves subscribing, it makes what we do all worthwhile. Oh, just getting overgrown in here. But and if you do subscribe, drop me a little comment, to say you've subscribed, because I like to reply to my subscribers. I like to thank them for taking the time to listen to this old git waffle on. And Keith is exactly the same. Let's Tab 59. Keith's exactly the same. If you comment or drop me a note in the comments, he'll always reply. It's called manners. Manners cost nothing. Manners maketh the man, as my nan used to say. So anyway, I'm going to tab on back home. I don't know if I'll do another video today. Might do another one if I go out tabbing tomorrow. But to all of you, please, while you're out there, take care, stay safe, and as me and Keith always say, let's tab.